Building a portfolio of real investments, whether that's rental properties, businesses, or other assets, takes real effort. It does not happen passively, and it definitely doesn't happen by accident. The challenge is that most people trying to do it are already busy. You've got a demanding job, a full calendar, responsibilities at home, and somewhere in the middle of all that, you're trying to move something meaningful forward. Maybe it's buying your first rental property. Maybe it's expanding a portfolio. Maybe it's starting a business. But those big wealth building projects can feel like pushing a rock uphill. When life gets busy or overwhelming, they're usually the first things that stall. So in this episode, I want to walk through the quarterly planning system that I use to make sure those big rocks actually keep moving, even when life is full and the schedule is tight. We'll talk about how to choose the right project for a 90-day window, how to break that project into weekly milestones, and how to translate those milestones into small daily actions that can actually fit into a busy life. This is the same approach my wife Andrea and I used while building our rental portfolio while working full-time and raising young kids. It's the same system I use today while working on larger projects across all areas of my life. And if you're new here, this is the 20-Minute Investor Podcast, where we teach time-strapped professionals how to build wealth through real estate and small business investing in just 20 minutes a day. My name is Aaron Amin, and I'll be your host. All right, let's start with the first step. Most people don't fail at investing because they lack knowledge. In my experience, it usually comes down to two things. First, you don't know what to focus on. And second, you give up when things get difficult. And both of those problems are amplified when you're busy. At any given time, you probably have 5 or 6 areas of life competing for your attention. Your job, your family, your health, your friendships, your hobbies, and somewhere in that mix is your financial life and investing. The problem is that all of those things are competing for the same 24 hours in a day, 8 of which are typically taken sleeping. Trying to make progress on 6 things at once is incredibly inefficient. Real progress usually happens when you decide which 1 or 2 things deserve your focus right now, which brings us to the second part of the system, the quarterly focus rule. The rule is simple. You choose 1 or 2 priorities for the next 90 days that require effort above and beyond what you would normally be doing. I call this your quarterly focus. The key is that these goals should require marginal effort. If your quarterly goal is simply to show up to work and do your job, that doesn't count. That's already the baseline expectation. A quarterly focus should produce a result that otherwise would not have happened. For investors, that might look something like defining a buy box for properties you want to buy, submitting a certain number of offers, building relationships with agents or other team members on the ground. Outside of investing, it might be something like improving your health, strengthening a relationship, or building a skill. The point is that you're consciously deciding what matters most for the next 90 days instead of letting life decide for you. Once you've chosen your quarterly focus, the next step is making sure the goal is specific enough to execute. One helpful way to think about this is recognizing that there are 2 types of goals: action-oriented goals and outcome-oriented goals. Action goals focus on the behaviors that lead to success. Outcome goals focus on the result you want to achieve. You can think of it this way. Action provides the path. Outcome provides the destination. For example, an outcome goal might be buying my first rental property this quarter. An action goal supporting that might be analyze 5 deals per week and submit at least 2 offers per month. Once your goal is that specific, it becomes much easier to break it down into the milestones that actually move it forward. Which leads us to the next step. Once your quarterly focus is clear, you break it down into weekly milestones. This is where most people get stuck. A goal like buy a rental property feels very overwhelming because it feels like there is so much involved. But once you break it down into milestones, it becomes manageable. For example, the milestones in buying a rental property might look something like this: research a market, interview potential teammates, build your buy box, get pre-qualified for financing, analyze deals, submit offers. You get the gist. Each one of those becomes a milestone that moves you closer to your quarterly goal. So instead of wondering what you should be doing, you already know. Then we get to the core part of the 20-Minute Investor System. Once you know your milestones, the only commitment left to make is to spend 20 minutes per day moving the project forward. Ideally, you can do this 7 days a week, but of course, we're all human and things come up. So at a minimum, the ask is to commit to 5. 20 minutes per day might not sound like much, but it's enough time to make meaningful progress. You can analyze a deal, send a couple emails, reach out to that person you've been putting off, review a deal, update your notes. You get the idea. And when you do this consistently, something important happens. your identity begins to change. If the identity you currently have was sufficient to reach your goals, you probably would already have reached them. By doing something repeatedly over and over again over a long period of time, instead of trying to do it in small, unmanageable, unsustainable bursts, is going to get you into that identity that is the type of person that will succeed at the goal you are trying to accomplish. 20 minutes a day is enough to create that change without overwhelming your life. So here's how I'd encourage you to put this into practice. Think about a project you've either been working on for a while or one you've been wanting to start. Turn it into a quarterly plan by asking yourself 3 questions. What are the 1 or 2 priorities that deserve my focus for the next 90 days? Are my goals action-oriented or outcome-oriented? And what weekly milestones would move me towards that goal? Make your commitment to spending just 20 minutes a day pushing it forward. And if you're honest with yourself about doing that consistently, you'll be surprised how quickly things start to move. If this type of structured thinking is helpful for you, this is exactly the type of conversation we have inside our free school community. It's a community where you can ask your questions, gain access to our full library of workshops and courses, and connect with other investors who are trying to build meaningful portfolios without sacrificing what's important to them. You can join by going to aaronamin.com/school. That's SKOOL. I'll catch you on the next one.